Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to today's Chief Learning Officer webinar, sponsored by GP Strategies. I hope everyone's having a great week so far and excited as I am for today's webcast. 4 foundations for future success, building your modern learning organization today. My name is Steve, and as always, I'll be working in the background here to help answer any general or technical questions you may have. Before we get started, though, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. First, all audio will be streamed through your speakers or headphones, so please adjust your volume there accordingly. If you have any questions or experience any technical issues throughout this webcast today, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you have a technical question, the answer will appear here. Any content-related questions for our speaker today will be read at the end if time allows. Don't forget, you can chat with your fellow attendees by joining the live attendee chat. And finally, you will receive a link to the recording of this webinar along with the certification codes for this webcast in a follow-up email. So please allow at least 24 hours after the conclusion of the event before the information is sent. Now at this time, I would like to go ahead and introduce our speakers for today's webinar. First up, we have Andrew Jolly, Head of Strategy for GP Strategies. And next we have Jeff Bloom, Principal Consultant also for GP Strategies. And I'm gonna pass it over to Andrew to get us started. So Andrew, take it away when ready.
Thanks very much, Steve, and good to see everybody here. Good to have you all here. Nice to be back with CLO. We've got an interesting hour for you. We are going to be talking about building the modern learning organization today, and we're focusing on 4 foundations for future success. There are so many different factors at play with creating the optimal learning organization. We've chosen 4. In a sense, we're talking about the 4 kind of trends of the moment. They're the things that we talk about a lot, and to us, it's about balancing the needs of the learner and the organization. So of the 4 things we're going to be talking about, 2 of them really look at what the organization needs, and 2 of them really look about what the learners need. Little introduction, my name is Andrew Jolly. I'm Head of Strategy at GP Learning Experience, and I have worked in the industry for 20-something years with a huge range of customers, clients, and I've seen the evolution of learning in business and grown up with it. Fascinating time, never a more interesting time than the present, and some of the stuff that is happening right now and that the consulting team are enjoying grappling with, like AI and how we're going to deploy AI into business, is all very, very exciting, and I'll be talking a little bit about that in a minute. And I've been working most of that time with my colleague Jeff. Over to you, Jeff.
Thanks very much, Andrew. I think you're underestimating your time in the industry, because I've been in it nearly 40 years, and your level of experience implies you must have at least that much experience. I'm delighted to be with you. Thanks very much for the introduction. And in that time, I've also had the privilege of working with many different clients and seen the way that they run their learning operations and how they deliver their learning. And obviously, we learn a lot from doing that, and we learn a lot from working with our clients, but also we learn from sessions like this. So we're also going to ask your opinions as we go through the session as well. So it's great to be with you.
We are going to be asking you some questions, and we'll also be sharing this deck at the end of the session. So you will have all of this to take away with you. And we would really welcome chat questions to us in the webinar chat box, and we will attempt to answer as many as we can in the time. So when Jeff and I talk to you and come to you, we are coming very much from the learning services area of what GP Strategy does. It's a huge organization, and it is one formed from mergers over time with and incorporations of many teams, specialist teams that work really closely together now. And those teams work within consulting area, top left, specialist consultants in many different areas, such as enterprise technology adoption, leadership, performance, and so on, DE&I particularly. And then we have technology components in our organization, highly innovative partnerships that GP has with many different vendors, and providers that we work with and enable into our customers, but also our partners at Learning Technologies Group, which we are a part of, and platforms that you would recognize, LMSs and others. Top right is where we come in to play, and we represent both the managed learning service provision, where we are delivering learning into organizations operationally, administering it, and ensuring that the organizations are able to deliver and make best use of their learning for performance growth and transformation. And of course, learning experience, actually creating great learning. And that's what Jeff and I have been doing for many, many years. And we talk about talent transformation and working to attract, develop, engage people and drive performance through that. Another thing you'll often see when you meet us is a strapline that we meet you where you are and take you where you need to go. And this really respects the fact that every organization has a different learning culture, a different learning ecosystem. They're in a different place on their journey to create the optimal use of learning for driving their performance. And so it's incredibly important for us to understand where our customers are when we first get to know them, and we could be working with them on a single project, or they are a partner that we work with for 5 years, 10 years or more, in some cases, many more than that. And we have developed a way of looking at organizations that I'm just going to talk about for a couple of minutes before we come to the 4 foundations we're going to focus on. And we've distilled them into five kind of foundation areas. First of all, we describe the modern learning organization as having a strategically and culturally aligned learning function. And this is the leadership in the organization using learning, incorporating it from the very top of the organization strategically, and funding it and using it as a lever for performance every day as part of their operations, right up to exec level. The second foundation for a great learning organization is that there is an operating model that is highly efficient, reaches all the learners, is alive, connected with those learners, giving them what they need when they need it, and supporting them and their managers in every way. In the middle there, you'll see the area that's close to our hearts, Jeff and I. It's delivering great learning execution and learning experiences to our learners. Respecting their modern learning workplace, the kind of work they're doing today, and how our learners want to work and want to receive their learning, and how it integrates into everything they do. To support that, we want to see a fully enabling technology ecosystem, one that delivers in a transparent way all the different modes of learning and takes back the data for fluid data flow. And that ecosystem is constantly innovating and evolving. And then finally, measuring the impact of learning, again, something very close to Jeff and my heart, for reporting back to the business, for engaging with the business, continuously evolving for that business. So these are the 5 foundations that we use. And in fact, we're going to be talking about a lot of them today. And we have developed those into an actual health assessment, diagnostic health assessment. And if you're interested in coming to talk to us about that, please do. Our details will be at the end of the talk. So I'd like to ask everyone a question. We have these 5 foundations, and we would like you to score where you are in each of these 5 areas. So score your organization in terms of each of these 5 things: strategically, culturally aligned learning function. If you're doing incredibly well, give yourself a 5 in that context. If you've got a long way to go, give yourself a 1, and anywhere in between. So we have the strategically, culturally aligned learning function. Then we have the operating model. Score yourself 5, down to 1, 1, A lot of room for improvement. 5, yep, we've absolutely got it nailed. It is optimal. Best practice learning execution, learning experience. How does the learners get their learning? Is it fit for purpose? What are you? A 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1? And how about your ecosystem? 4th on the list. Your learning technology ecosystem. This is really about technologies delivering the learning you need and how you need it. And then finally, the mature measurement and data ecosystem. How are you doing? Score yourself. 5 down to 1 is the worst. So are we getting some scores through, Steve?
Yes. Let me go ahead and share these results with you.
Great, thank you very much. Very good. Okay. So 5 very best. Learning execution and in the middle there is doing best. So that's where you really feel that you're doing well. Followed by the technology ecosystem. We'll be talking about that. And then you've got strategy, culturally aligned learning function in your business. The operating model to support that looks like could do with some work, although it gets a good lot of 3s there. So obviously you will think it's kind of doing all right, but not getting many 5s. And then the measurement and data ecosystem, really very few 5s, some 3s, but it looks like there's quite a long way to go. There's a few 1s there. Really interesting. Measurement's always been a really hard nut to crack. It's true. And it's something we find ourselves talking a lot about. Any thoughts on that, Jeff?
No, I'm just interested to see the spread. So that yeah, I'm not surprised to see mature measurement and data ecosystem, because a lot of our clients are continually evolving in that area and at different levels of maturity. I think that the fully enabling learning technology ecosystem as well, there's some people that are doing well in that space, but obviously there's people at the bottom that are not doing so well. And this probably is a reasonably representative view of our clients as well. We'll share the poll results after this as well, by the way. So, if you contribute to the polls, you get this as a bit of kind of a market for the people on the call, a bit of a kind of a market temperature check as well.
So thank you very much, everyone, for your thoughts there. Let's just move on. One of the topics that we're not going to spend a lot of time on today is the strategic and culturally aligned point. It is the foundation of everything. What I wanted to just say about it, though, before we move on, is that we walk into an organization, and this is one of the things that we are looking at closely. And one of the indicators, just as an example, is the onboarding, and whether the onboarding of new people into your organization aligns very closely with the way that organization strategy is laid out in front of it. So, for instance, an organization like Heineken was really a lot about brand, and because it is it is a business of brands in the drinks business. An organization like, moving on, Jeff, Ferrero is all about sustainability, and the onboarding we did for them included a lot of emphasis on sustainability. And then the third example is we do a lot of work in automotive, and one of our customers, Jaguar Land Rover, very much wanted to focus on rebooting the relationship with customers going forward, and that was part of the onboarding. So we can tell a lot just from that as to whether the learning function is aligning closely with the strategy. That's just an example. There are many other ways we do it, but thought you might like that. So moving on, Jeff. Today we're going to talk to you about our four chosen topics of the day: skilling and upskilling, and the relevant and trusted technology ecosystem Jeff's going to touch on, and then I'll pick up on how we engage learners and what the future of learning and AI and learning in the age of intelligence is looking like for us right now. So over to you, Jeff.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Andrew. So as Andrew said, I'm just going to talk initially about skilling and upskilling. And this is a really challenging area for organizations at the moment, because the world we live in is complex and ever changing, and Unless you're very lucky, you'll have experienced business disruption. You'll have probably experienced a rapid rate of change. We're all experiencing disruptive technologies in the form of AI, at least most of us are. We've moved through COVID, and a lot of us are in a hybrid working environment. And there's many other factors, as you can see here, that are meaning that, you know, organizations' capabilities and skills are constantly needing to evolve, and they're sometimes sort of underpinned by solutions that haven't really delivered. So there's a lot to think about in this area, and there's a lot on this particular slide. But one of the things that organizations need to do, and a lot of our clients are at varying degrees along this journey, is to make sure that people, the organization as a learning function, is able to understand what curriculum people need because they understand their skills and capabilities, and also are able to give people the content they want, and are able to kind of create or enable or allow people to find the content they need in terms of change tools and learner journeys. So there's quite a lot of stuff to put into place to have the foundations for a successful organization around skills and competencies, including things like you know, mapping out job roles, mapping out skills and capabilities, and so on. And you know, actually, this is an area that has been really challenging. It may be an area that's starting to get a little bit easier to do. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if you map all of this stuff out, it can be a big activity. And it's certainly, you know, we've seen the complexity with a lot of our clients. And in our managed learning services division, this is something that we support our clients with when they choose to get us to manage these things. But not all skills and competencies are created equal. One of the things that we suggest to our clients is that there's several different kind of layers of skills that you need to think about. There's the kind of the skills and competencies you need to play the game, the essential skills. And you can often meet the requirements for those skills through things like curated learning experience platforms, subscribing to generic content, or you might be in an industry where the play the game is part of professional development. But this is an area which often comprises a large part of the curriculum. You often include a lot of compliance training and that type of thing within there. Often it's met by fairly generic content, and actually sometimes you can acquire the skills that you need to play the game just by recruiting. Doesn't necessarily have to be delivered as learning, but it often is a large part of a large proportion of our clients' learning catalogues. Much more interestingly is the stuff that really makes a difference, because as long as you can play the game, then you're in business. But actually, you want to be successful in what you do, and the sort of next level up that we talk about is the differentiating skills, the skills that are unique to your organization, the skills that actually your organization needs to focus on developing, because they're the things that make a difference. So these are the things that allow your staff to outperform the competition and be best in class. They're the organizational USPs. And this is where we often work with clients, because these are the tactical things that really make a difference. And this is where a lot of bespoke learning gets created. And then the third area is the stuff that keeps you ahead of the game, because in order to win the game, you constantly have to change and evolve. We know how dynamic the working environment is these days, and so there is a proportion of organizational learning that takes place, which I would call true organizational learning, which is where you get your innovators, your senior strategic leaders, people who set direction, people that take you into new markets, take you into new services, products, etc. And that's where the invention takes place. And so different forms of learning take place at different levels. In the middle, a lot of it's bespoke. At the top, a lot of it is learning in groups, documenting stuff, sharing stuff, knocking it around, kicking the tires. And so these things feel different on different platforms. So I was just interested to know, in terms of, they're all important, of course, but I was just interested to know in the chat where you are spending most of your time and your budget. Are you spending most of your time on the play the game stuff? Are you spending most of your time and your budget on the win the game stuff? Or are you spending a reasonable amount of your time and budget on the change the game stuff? And I'd be interested to see your comments in the chat. So, is it necessary that you just pour everything into into playing the game, or do you put the abbreviation for the USPs is the win the game. Okay, so from the bottom to the top, if you wanted to, you could say this is an unintentional acronym actually, but it's PWC. But P for play, W for win, C for change. And you could just say, well, actually, we spend 60% of our budget on playing the game. We spend 30% of our budget on winning the game, and 10% of the budget on changing the game, or our time. So,
Yeah.
Sherry, thank you very much for coming in there. That's really interesting. So, yeah, you know, there's a lot of stuff in the play the game area. I can see you're spending 80% of your time there. Winning the game, 20% of the time. That's reasonably healthy. Sometimes people choose to buy in a lot of stuff in the play the game area. Sometimes they create it all from scratch. Jose, you're saying it's mixed, skewed to the middle. That's interesting. And
Yeah.
Crystal, I'm intrigued as well that you're. I mean, there's fewer people that play in the change the game space. But those people, if they're really good, they then flow the stuff that they're creating and discovering down into the change the game space.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
right.
referencing back to that strategically aligned organization, if we engage with an organization that appears to be very strategically aligned, very often they are putting some more of their budget into the top change the game area, because they are recognizing that learning really can drive their growth and performance in a very significant way.
There's a risk, isn't there, that if you put too much budget into the play the game area, you're operating as, it depends how competitive your markets are and how specialist your products are, of course. But if you're working in a fairly generic market, you may be coming across as the same as everyone else. Unless you've got brilliant products, you know, then maybe that you're playing the game. You're not kind of head of the field. Skewed to the middle, you know, obviously you've got much more opportunity to beat the competition. So this is something that, you know, we're interested with our clients in terms of where they're acting and playing.
Nice.
And this obviously can be reflected in the nature of the curriculum. And obviously, if you're doing these things, if you're delivering content, if you're capturing competencies, if you're making sure that learners are receiving the learning they need, then you need something to support you in that. And so part of what we do with our clients is help them with their ecosystems. And this is the sort of thing that, you know, that our clients need and that we often help them with. In the first question that Andrew asked, this is an area where I think we were saying that things aren't necessarily completely joined up. But, you know, there's things like learning management systems, learning experience platforms, learning record stores, HR systems, intranets, internet, and so on. And then there's all the stuff that goes along with those. So, you know, where do you host it? How do you maintain it? How do you move on from one system to another? How do you integrate systems together? And how do you automate processes and this sort of thing? And this can be another pain point for organisations. So almost all organisations that we deal with have systems of these. But another question, another poll, be interested to know which of these are your biggest pain points. And we can kind of, I think, you know, one of the things that came out of the earlier one actually was that measurement and data analytics might be one. Let's select all of the items that are sort of pain points for you. If you go, actually, we're pretty good in terms of our systems integration, don't select the box. If you go, actually, we're short of a team to provide support, we can only do the bare minimum, maybe tick the box. But again, Steve, if you could let us know when we've got a reasonable number of responses, and we'll see what the wisdom of the crowd tells us.
These are all, by the way, were statements that we got in another webinar that we did, and that came up when we were asking about people's relationship with technology and where their pain points were. And so it'd be really interesting to now overlay your thoughts and feedback on this. Interestingly, measurement came up in the last poll we did a couple of minutes ago as we could do better, and we're not good enough. So it'd be really interesting to see if that lines up. So how are we doing, Steve?
Good. Let's get another 5-10 seconds here. Get a couple more people. All right, here we go.
So that this is great. I mean, measurement and data analytics, it's an area that Andrew and I are both passionate about. It's an area that learning and development still has growth to do. Integration with other systems actually relates to that, because sometimes you want to bring in data to allow you to do better data analytics. And one of the things that we do for some organizations is people don't always have the team support properly, so we sometimes provide that team. So these are not terribly surprising. And the other thing is that people don't always like their LMSs. So there's a couple of people, there's 26% of people say their LMS isn't fit for purpose. And those platforms aren't necessarily innovative enough in a learning tech context. What we sometimes find ourselves doing is helping people get more out of what they've got.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we do and can sort of help people with learning platform selection. But in terms of some of the things that our clients, our sort of best in class clients, want to do, is they want to give people really helpful information in terms of their learning. And I've got some example screens here from one of the platforms that we use. And you can see that, if you've got a well-configured learning platform or learning infrastructure, you can at an individual level see things like what your development plan is. Or if you want to look at things from a role perspective. So on the left-hand side, this individual development plan, this person has obviously got a set of development goals that they want to achieve and some learning support those. They may be in a particular role, they may be seeking another role. So it's also useful on a well-configured learning set of learning infrastructure to look at the roles people are aiming towards. Whether they're new in the role, they need to know the skills and capabilities they need to develop the role and what learning supports that. That's another useful view. And of course, as a manager, you want to know how your team's doing. So having visibility of the team skills and where the team are against those skills is another really useful view. So in this particular team, it looks like the manager has got a couple of people that are starting to really ace it on project management and some people that need more. So it's a useful development view. And then, of course, there are other views that are useful as well. So this is where things like AI can sometimes start to kick in. So this individual, the system's saying, that's really interesting, you're in this role, you've done this learning, other people in this role or doing this learning find these kinds of things really interesting. So it's starting to prompt things to encourage people to take responsibility for their own development. Crystal, I just see that your organization's functions are siloed. And this is a real interesting one. Sometimes we work in some organizations that are not just siloed in terms of their functions and visibility and knowledge and skills and capability. They even have multiple LMSs, so you may be better off than them. I don't know. But the other image that's on this screen is just showing the organizational level view. And of course, different systems can show these things in different ways. But this is the sort of thing that we aspire to help organizations with, and our client organizations will also aspire to get this view. So at organizational level, this you can drill into the detail here, but you can say 22% of the skill, 22 of the skills they've got high mastery, 31 of the skills they got moderate mastery, and 13 of the skills they got low mastery. If they've got high mastery in the core competencies, the play the game stuff, and low mastery in the win the game stuff, there's something to be done there, and that's an interesting view from that one. Anyway,
there's definitely, Jeff, a point about technology ecosystems that we come across time and time again, which is that, and I think that the response to the poll just now did support this, is that people are not using their technology ecosystems as well as they could. They're not actually using what they've got, whether it's a single platform and they have a whole lot of functionality, but they're not really deploying that. And an LMS, for instance, that actually, we work with many customers and go in and start talking about measurement and setting up new ways of measuring what they're doing. And in actual fact, the systems they have are capable of giving them much more information than they are currently using. And so we find ourselves going in and supporting our customers in not bringing in new systems, new technologies, overcomplicating matters, but actually using what they've got more smartly.
Yeah, I know you're going to talk about this a little bit later as well, but we also find some of our large global clients, they've got probably more content than they can shake a stick at, but they kind of lost control of that content. they almost have an embarrassment of riches and don't always know what they've got, and they don't necessarily know what the best of it is. So sometimes we're actually helping people to understand how to make better use of their content, even. Of course, that's often stored on the platform.
Yeah. And the other real challenge, I think, and I'll be touching on this in a minute, is around innovation, because platforms, you go to a big show, got ATD coming up. We've just had the largest learning show in London annually a week or so ago, Learning Technologies in London. And there are hundreds and hundreds of vendors, all showing you different new platforms to solve your future problems. And where do you start? Where do you go from there? And so the ability to explore what's out there and what's really working is really important. And again, it's not something that I'm going to talk about today in detail, but we do support a lot of our customers in talking about innovation and discussing and showing and bringing together different partners to explore how different tools could solve problems. And it is something that is definitely a key trend at the moment, especially supercharged with the whole AI question, which I'll come to in a minute.
The platforms and frameworks and analysis and learner journeys, they're the kind of the sort of, they're the bricks and mortar. They're the necessary evil that you need to have in place in order for the learner to have good experience, and that's where you're going to go next, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So I just remind you to put any questions you have in chat, and we'll come to them at the end of the session, or we'll drop out and answer them. So anything here that you have, any thoughts you have, any questions you have, anything you want to ask Jeff and I, please do just drop it in chat. So the next key foundation component that we want to talk about, that I'm going to talk about, is supercharging your learner engagement. So it's all very well having the most fantastic ecosystem in place, and we've talked about how you look at skills and upskilling particularly, and it's all very well having great learning there, but unless your learners are engaging with it and taking part in the learning experience and using it properly and trusting it, it is not going to be part of your performance future. And so it has been a constant kind of North Star for us to engage learners and keep them engaged and use learners to drive other learners to show them how learning will benefit them. So moving forward, Jeff, when we think about engaging learners, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, very often we start with, well, what as a way of unlocking our thinking, we start with what are the blockers here? So I'm just going to do a blocker question for you, really, is flipping it around the other way. What disengages our learners the most? What drives learner disengagement in an organization? So put your comments in chat. Any thoughts? What are the kind of things that stop learners from, or our people in our organizations from, really engaging with learning over time? Any thoughts?
It could be particular types of content or particular ways of delivering. Or yes, the situational things like not having enough time. Thanks, Robin. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. It comes up time after time at the top of the list. They don't have time. They have so many other priorities. What's interesting about that, it is about priority. And what it means is that the leaders and managers in the organization do not regard learning as important enough to allow them to put it up higher in their priority list, which is a great shame. Not addressing their learning needs, it's not, that feeling of it not being relevant, it's not for me, it's a kind of add-on. There's a big, it's learners who think, well, there's a massive library of stuff there, but it's not, none of it's important for me. No, I don't, we can overcomplicate. We can overcomplicate what we do, in which case they're going to turn off, go somewhere else.
There's a couple of interesting things that kind of complement each other. Catherine said too much. Somebody else has said cluttered LMS, multiple places. And then somebody else has said inability to find. And those are kind of correlate, don't they, really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's massive key trend at the moment around that. Too hard to find what I need. There's too much stuff there. How do I know which is the best course? I'll talk about that in a minute.
And the other one that's a perennial one that's really, really important as we increasingly global is the lack of cultural diversity. If you don't feel the content's for you, why are you going to do it? We need to make sure that we reach out to all our audiences and that they feel that it's designed for them.
Yeah. I like Francois's comment, there's no immersion, it's just an information dump. Really, really important. There are different, we need to recognize there are different sorts of, well, certainly different moments of need, but different types of need. There's the information when you want it fast, accessible, but then also if it's about learning about decision-making or the complexity of how to become a great leader or a great manager, it's not just about here's another model, here's another model. It's give me a chance to try it out, give me a chance to engage and challenge.
Mind you, we often talk about push and pull, and I think if you're differentiating the organization and stuff that will help people win the game, then there's quite a lot of push content in that space. As people are developing and they need stuff as and when they need it, in the kind of the win the game stuff, there's quite a lot of pull. So if you've got a big chunk of curriculum in the pull space, it needs to be very searchable. It needs to be bite-sized. It needs to be friendly. It needs to be easy to reach because it's often at the point of need, as you just said, Andrew.
Yeah.
Whereas other tactical initiatives, sometimes they need to be pushed out to everybody. And there's other things like compliance that have to be pushed as well.
And I agree. And I really like Robin, the point, not having feedback from the organization that there is a need to improve on the skill, or an indication that this is an area where there is a need. And again, AI hopefully will give us the ability for managers to understand the strengths and weaknesses of their team and enable their team or nudge them in the right direction in terms of what they should be engaging with to drive the performance of them and their organization. So I'm just going to talk about a few key foundations of really engaging the learners. We are in a kind of absolute step change moment in delivering learning into organizations right now, a kind of mini revolution around AI. Some people would say a much bigger revolution than a mini revolution. It's happening, and it's going to massively change the world that we're in positively. The last one, I think, that we had, like last time we had this, it was around social learning and connection between learners, because digital learning particularly used to be very, very solo experience. The origins of CBT, when Jeff and I were doing this 20-something years ago, it was a person at a laptop, well, not a laptop, person at a big clunky computer doing some learning on their own. And the complete change to that happened, 10 years ago or more, when we were able to bring learners together again, even though they're at distance, they're not in the same room. They can join a cohort of learners. They can share. They can network. They can sense make together. They can connect to one another, and that is how human beings learn. And most of our programs have some form of social learning component or are built into a platform that is fundamentally a social platform. And what really works is delivering those blended learning journeys where people are perhaps going and doing something on their own, applying their learning, coming back, talking to others about what's working, where they have problems, going back out and doing some stuff, and keeping that social connection running over time. So for instance, if you move forward, Jeff, We recently released a course internally into our organization around AI. And this is also available to customers and anybody who wants to come and do it. It's been really, really successful. And, you know, here we are. This is one of the sort of examples of the social platform that we used. And from here, there are small components of things you can do. You can connect to others, you can tell stories, you can go off and do small pieces of e-learning and so on and so on. There are videos to watch. And this is really how learning is evolving. But it is the power of the connection that drives the learners through from week to week and make sure they do what they need to do, as well as some really nice gamified scoring systems here, badges, awards, and those kind of things that really work. One of the things that we asked people to do at one point was to use some image generators and start exploring how that works. And Jeff, if you click forward, you can see, you know, a couple of the results where we asked people to take their pet or somebody else's pet that they know and create posters and things like that, and just see how easy it is to use AI to generate assets and content, which is a, you know, fascinating area. And you will not be surprised to know that this was the most successful task in the whole of the course that we developed, the 4-week course, which only confirms to me the power of anything to do with pets and social media of being much, much more sticky than almost anything else we could ask anyone to do. And there were some great results. But, you know, anything like this that gets people sharing, you know, having fun together and so on is really, really powerful. And moving forward again. So next, it's about employee experience. Now, this is a massive area. It is about giving people the right learning at the right time, easily. You know, we've had comments here in chat just now about, well, I need to be able to get it. Needs to be right for me. There's too much stuff. How do I find it? So it needs to be accessible. It needs to be integrated into work as close as possible into your everyday activities and your systems you use in work. Because if it's in a system that's over here and it's hard to get to, you're just not going to go there. It needs to be smart, feel like it is responding to your needs. It's not just been, you know, sitting there on a shelf for years. It feels like it's live. It's joined up one piece of learning to another that references learning references, or different components of a learning journey reference each other, use the same language. They may be in different places, coming to you from different technology platforms, but they need to be significantly feel joined up and aligned with one another. You know, we've been into so many organizations where there are 3 or 4 or 5 different leadership models flying around the organization. And people go, well, I don't know what to do. How do I know what to do? If my organization can't decide, you know, the consistent messaging out, then, you know, it doesn't interest me. And then learning needs to be challenging. So a really good example is, you know, gamified learning. We are absolutely specialists in developing gamified solutions and games for learning. This is an example of something we did for a massive global fast food chain aimed at consultants who go into their restaurants and drive the restaurant performance. But these are people who are top of their job. And it was really, really important that we developed something that absolutely aligned with their knowledge level. Now, when I played the game, I couldn't do it at all. I couldn't get any score. But when we tested it and rolled it out to the consultants, they said that it was fantastic, and it was incredibly difficult, but it really challenged their perception of what they do and made them reflect on how to use data in driving performance in their organization. And finally, on this point, the other thing is that it needs to be deeply relevant. And we've had a comment from one of you there about making sure it's for me. There are many different ways you can do that. We do a lot of work with developing customized learning. You know, Jeff and I spend most of our time creating ground up learning programs that really, really work in organizations. We also have generic off the shelf, and we have a kind of range of things in between. But if it's really important, if it's that win the game or change the game content, it needs to feel absolutely aligned with the way that organization is. So if we go in and create a leadership program, it will be a mixture of live sessions, digital support platforms, social, and so on. And it will really work with the culture of that organization. It's really important that it feels right for them. Moving on, the other side of relevance is personalization, and a lot of our energy goes towards countering that one-size-fits-all problem and making sure that the learning people see and do really feels like it's for them. Of course, now with AI, we can try and create adaptive learning pathways, which are really, really exciting, which means each person is doing having a different learning journey according to how they are engaging with the learning. And just a very simple thing as well, and we mentioned it earlier, organizations have a huge libraries of content that much of which has been there for years, and it is really important that we clean it up, we keep it lean, and get rid of stuff that is irrelevant and out of date, and not good enough, so that our learners are more inclined to find the stuff that really is important. And the question Jeff and I have for you is around that. It's not a question we've ever asked anybody, but we thought it'd be interesting. Is there anything that you've recently got rid of, or you feel that you should get rid of, or something you need to look at because you're not sure? You don't have to tell us the actual course content, but sort of areas of what you do in delivering learning. It doesn't even need to be content. It just could be, do you know what? In my heart, I think we need to sort out this. We could do with a spring clean. Anything? Put it into chat if you have any thoughts. We have so many customers coming to us at the moment saying, how do we do it? So a single day orientation from Brian. And Robin is saying we're doing regular audits. That's great with SMEs. You see, that's really, really good. And that kind of thing makes sure that the content is fresh and it is right and it is fit for purpose. But so often an SME has helped create a course and then they've disappeared, gone on to another job, moved out of the organization. No one knows who that SME was, you know, and it's a task to keep them tracked and keep them in. I like Crystal saying we need to get rid of the idea in our learning culture that real training only takes place on site in person with a live instructor in the room. Absolutely. Absolutely. Learning can take place in so many different ways, just like our work takes place in so many different ways now.
I really like Sherry's comment, Andrew, in that saying that our learning programs are too new to have anything old, but actually they ask for an evaluation. And of course, less is often more. So sometimes you start off with a course that's perhaps a bit too lengthy. If you measure what's good in it and you get that feedback from the learners, you can cut it down. One of the things we often do with our clients is we try to make things leaner, smaller, more bite-sized.
Yeah, really nice, really nice. And that evaluation point is really important. In a way, what we want to be doing is evaluating not just when you've just done the course, but a few weeks later and say, was that really useful? Or how useful was that? Or which bits were useful? So that we can make sure that we keep those courses completely relevant. So finally, a topic area that we talk about all the time right now, and you go to a big, if you go to a big, you know, conference or event, you know, it seems that it's 80% of what everyone's talking about is AI, and we call it learning in the age of intelligence because, yeah, we've got this big step change, big moment of interest because of AI, and particularly, the advent of generative AI, ChatGPT, and so on, which seems to be so relevant to us as learning providers. But of course, we've had intelligence and smart tools behind what we do for a long time. So I just wanted to talk for 5 minutes on this. But first of all, we're going to ask you a question. And this is a complicated one. We'll give you a little bit more time to read through. But we just want to know where you are really with AI, and in a kind of formal learning way. The chances are that most of you have played around with ChatGPT maybe in the evenings, just to see what was going on. But in terms of kind of formally in your L&D context as learning providers or learners, where are you with respect to using AI? So we've not used AI yet. There could be many reasons why that's the case. If you click that, you're probably not going to be clicking anything below. Next choice, and is we're exploring, experimenting. Third, we really only use it using vendor tools that have AI embedded in it. Perhaps you're using it for scripting and creating learning content, or you're using it for all sorts of asset generation, not just scripting, but images, video, media. Portfolio management is another thing. That's sort of another area that I'll come to, but it is about auditing loads of content, and that's something AI can do. Or are you actually using it to support learning journeys and personalization, adaptive learning? So anything there that feels relevant, choose where you are. I think
Robin was saying this is something that a lot of organisations are challenged with, actually, is that, are you allowed to use it at work? I mean, obviously there is, if you're using generative imagery, for example, where's that imagery coming from? Is it coming from somebody else's idea? And public generative AI brings some of those challenges with it. And interesting to see, Robin, that you're not allowed to use it at the moment. And Sherry, thanks for including that additional one. If there's anything that's not on the list, put it in the chat as well.
So really nice to see lots of people exploring, experimenting with it, but for probably reasons just discussed, a lot of people not using it yet. There are some people scripting content, which is really nice, and maybe one or two of you are using AI for other assets, images, video, and media.
Adrian spotted one of the problems with your images of dogs earlier on, Andrew. It is problematic in terms of creating the right language. I think the Star Wars one had fairly nonsensical words on it, but it was a funny.
Yeah, in image terms, yeah. And it is really interesting. You have to sort of build a kind of level of understanding of these tools in order to not mistrust that. If you do explore creating images in Copilot and so on, you realize that the text in a poster is not going to be readable, and that's fine once you get there. So thank you very, very much for that. So I'm just going to give you, in the last 5 minutes, a very quick kind of view of what I see the opportunity areas. This, by the way, this was a course we developed, and I mentioned it earlier. If anybody's interested in knowing more about coming on a 4-week course once a week for a few hours about practical AI for learning leaders, do come back to us, because we'd love to have a chat with you about that. But so the way I look at the AI opportunities, there are four areas really here. Top left, we'll start top left. This is really about AI and administration of learning. So, we're developing tools which quickly, or we have developed tools which can quickly scan through many hundreds of different courses that may exist in LMSs in an organization, create new and consistent metadata, and allow you to audit them, see what you've got, and act in service of creating leaner, more relevant content, because we can now look through 1,000 things in a relatively short period of time, something that would have taken weeks or months of humans to do. We can map capability and skills. We can join up skills gaps with the learning in an organization now using AI, which is really exciting. There are ways we can use AI for administering services and analytics and insights. So that's really around sort of admin, portfolio management, managed learning, service provision. This area top right is what I would call AI around delivering what we're currently doing, the model of learning we're currently delivering. So using AI, for scripting in there, for translation and localization, creating assets, as we've been discussing, but also for content scoping, mapping content, really useful, and creating ideas. If you have spent a bit of time creating great prompts with learning how to prompt, you quickly can use AI to give you different ideas. And that kind of mix of humans in the AI story and having great learning designers using AI to support them is a really, really interesting way of driving efficiency and creating great new effective experiences. Bottom right is really where I think it's very, very interesting. It's where we're going to see AI enabling us to knock down some of the barriers to great learning in organizations. So quickly enabling us to flex formats, to take existing courses and output them in new ways, create a video script on something, create an infographic from something, take this PDF and create some questions quickly that are useful in the learning context. And that will drive sustainability because we can easily create more components for a learning journey. And then we have personalization and we have creating nudging and coaching support. These are the areas where I think we're going to be seeing AI make our learning better. And it's really, really exciting. And then finally, round to bottom left, I call this disruptive. Sounds bad. What I mean is it's disrupting our kind of current models and understanding. This is a little bit further away. It's a bit foggier in the future, but it may only be 6 months, 12 months away when we really see the relationship between the learner and the learning and the organization change. So platforms or environments that are properly in the flow of work, giving us predictive guidance based on data and activities of other learners, what the organization...
Andrew, I'm really, really conscious of time. We've got a great question in there, actually, from
Sure.
Andrea. It relates to disruptive areas. She's obviously jumped on the coaching point. She's just saying, could you talk a bit more about coaching and how AI can help with coaching?
Well, I think that the broad idea of coach, guide, assistant, there's a lot of conversation we could have around that and what actual coaching means. But in the sense that some sort of intelligent coach that can see what you're doing, perhaps answer questions, perhaps give you ideas and nudges to do things. These are all sort of things that a human coach does as part of what they do. Now, there's obviously an awful lot of subtlety with real coaching and coaches, particularly in complex areas. But the idea of there being an intelligent support system that enables and guides you every day in your work is often being given the name coach, if you like, or guide or assistant. It's a really interesting.
And strangely, some of the earlier developments around the use of AI used by psychologists as modeling sort of coaching questions. Tell us more. Why do you feel that way? What might you do about it? Those sorts of questions were built into some of the relatively early AI models, and people came back and said, "This really understood me. This AI really understood me. It really empathized with me." And of course, it didn't, but it was obviously helpful, productive, and useful for them. As Andrew says, we're probably using it increasingly these days. as a guide, not just as a kind of a platitudinal questioning tool.
So we are carefully and very, very mindful of data and security and IP, working in many of these different areas with our customers. We're piloting tools and solutions in these areas. And if anybody is interested in knowing more, please come back to us. But this was really just a way of looking at what's going on in the world of AI and learning from our point of view. So I think we're at time, and it's time to hand back to Steve. Thank you very, very much from me. It's been really nice to spend time with you.
Yes, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. I'm sorry that we're not able to get to too many more questions, but I do want to thank you, Andrew and Jeff, for taking time out of your busy day to present this information with us. I know I enjoyed it, and from the looks of it, looks like the audience did as well, so thank you. Thank you to the audience also for joining in, for continuing to support our Chief Learning Officer webinars. And of course, last but not least, thank you to our good friends over at GP Strategies for sponsoring today's event. Be sure to register for our next webcast, this one titled, What's Keeping Your CEO Up at Night? How to Future-Proof Your Organization, taking place Thursday, May 23rd, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. This concludes today's webcast. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great day.